From Los Angeles, the home of film and television, this is Film Music Live, a webcast featuring outstanding composers, orchestrators, filmmakers, and more from the world of music for film, television, and video games, talking about their work and answering your questions. Film Music Live is sponsored by the Film Music Network and Film Music Institute. And now the host of Film Music Live, Daniel Schweiger.
Hey everyone, I'm Daniel Schweiger, and welcome to Film Music Live, the show where you get to ask the questions to today's top composers. I'm happy to have you here. For a 1966 TV show that boldly went within that first unaired pilot with a #1 to its Captain Pike, it seems like science fiction that it would take 56 years for an otherwise positively progressive franchise to get a female composer to pilot one of Star Trek's shows. Now, thanks to going back to the beginning with Strange New Worlds, that musical captain's chair has been occupied in style by NAMI MELUMAD. The raves have been arriving on view screen for this glorious example of retro Trek, no more so than for its fresh, sweepingly heroic scoring that captures creator Gene Roddenberry's sense of wonder and humanity. Hailing from Israel, where she developed an interest in film music while in high school, Nami's work on short films and documentaries would transport her to Los Angeles and USC's graduate scoring program. An avowed Trekkie, Melamud continued to amass numerous credits, becoming the first woman to score the franchise for the short Trek Q&A, tellingly featuring Captain Pike and #1. Nami continued to impress with the children's fantasy Anastasia, the Oscar-winning documentary short Colette, the Amazon Prime thriller Absentia, the delightful klezmer co-score of An American Pickle with Michael Giacchino, and the Netflix suspense spoof The Woman in the House Across the Street from the Girl in the Window. After her work on the Star Trek animated series Prodigy, it was only logical that Melamud would get to play her nostalgic love of new-style classic Trek with all of the melody that distinguished the original series for Strange New Worlds. Told in a more serialized format and topped with a title theme by Jeff Russo, Melamud's exceptionally produced scoring has ventured from a planet on the edge of war to an alien-possessed meteor and iron-storm fire creatures among the OG Enterprise's adventures, sonically distinguishing each episode while warmly tying together a bridge full of familiar, wonderfully revamped characters. It's scoring with an emotional heart alongside a lush sense of wonder that spells out Star Trek music at its best, announcing the voice of a composer with many epic adventures to come for stories set on this planet and well beyond it. And now here's a #1 Star Trek composer who's taking the most acclaimed spin on Star Trek yet for its Shakedown cruise. Welcome to Film Music Live, Nami MELUMAD.
Hey! Wow, thank you. This was awesome.
Well, it's great having you here. Everyone who's watching, send in your questions for Nami on Strange New Worlds. Maybe she'll give you a spoiler. Who knows? Well, Nami, I guess mea culpa. My dad ventured from Germany in 1938 and settled for many years in Bet Yitzhak in Israel.
Really? Oh, wow.
Tell me about growing up in Israel and getting an appreciation for music and film music.
Well, I love Israel. It's awesome. And it was a great place to grow up. I actually wasn't super familiar with Star Trek at the time when I grew up. I saw like these, this was TNG time. So I saw kind of like, you know, those people with costumes and like with pointed ears and the Romulan, like everything looked so funny and weird, and I didn't understand the English, and so but I was really into the music of not just that, but like other shows and movies, and I started to develop that interest. I think it was really early on, like maybe 12 or 13, and I would play things on piano and kind of see, hey, I can play Lord of the Rings. So, you know, eventually those themes are it's a melody and chords. So if I can play them on piano, I can probably write something too. And then that's where I kind of started writing, and I would write instrumentals, and I would like kind of imagine, so what's going to be in the fourth pirate movie, you know, Pacific Caribbean. That was the big score of the time. And I kind of started out, and then I saw that I can do it. And that's kind of how it all started. I mean, musically, I also like orchestral stuff. I was into that, and there was the school band, and I actually joined because there was a boy that I liked, and I wanted to be in that band with him. So yeah, I mean, but it was fun. It was eventually I kind of fell in love with the music, not just the guy. But yeah, so that's kind of it, I guess, like the start of it.
When did it become serious for you that, this is something that I want to do?
I think around 14 or 15. Like I was really diving into scores. I really love Lord of the Rings and the Harry Potter and Star Wars, like all of that. A lot of sci-fi and fantasy. And then I realized, hey, so I love writing music. I love playing music. I was playing at the time piano, flute, and guitar. I still play those instruments. And I figured that like, so there's like a couple of things with composition. You could do something that's just songs, like, or not just, but like the music will be a standalone piece, or like you go in a concert. And then the other option was to do something that goes along with other forms of art, like acting and directing. And so we had the school play. I was in the music department of the school, and we had this like kind of an operetta thing where it was like to write songs and then transitional music, like it's music underneath. And it was a whole production. And I actually got to be part of the writing team, like for the lyrics and the actual story, and to produce it. And we worked with the actors and the director and like writing the music, and then the orchestra, like everything was, it was all like student making, like even not student, like a high school student. And then I realized it's really, fun to be part of something bigger. So it's not just the music, but it's like everything else too. And that was really, really fun. So that's kind of when I wanted to go in that direction. And then right after high school, I worked with the same director. She actually was the first person to officially hire me to write music, because she saw what I did for the school thing. And she was like, well, I have this theater play that I'm working on. Will you write the music? And I was just thrilled. The fun thing about theater is that, it's live. So everything is like, it's all very immediate. But the minus about it is that you have to, like, oftentimes you have to be there on stage, or like be at the rehearsals, and like it was a lot. It's like it's very time consuming. Yeah, so I started doing films. This was like probably after my military service, and then I went to Australia and New Zealand. So it was like around, I was 22 or so, or 21, when I started doing like shorter films. And I just loved it because it was exactly the same storytelling, but I didn't have to be there on stage. Plus I have stage fright, so don't love that.
And you did a ton of shorts, I mean, a lot. What brought you to America? How did you get over here?
Well, I had this dream of being a film composer. So I kind of planned it out really. I heard about this school in California, this like, it almost sounds like a legend, but that's USC, that's the scoring program. And there was a student there, Asafrinde, he's a composer. And he studied with my teacher in Jerusalem Academy of Music. And so when he came to talk about that school, I was even more excited. So yeah, but this was already when I knew that I wanted to be here. And I thought, like, yeah, I'll go through the USC program. I'll get the right training. I'll work really, really hard. And hopefully it works out. And so that's why I did. Like, I mean, I think from 16 or 17 years old, I already knew I wanted to be here in California and do film music. And yeah, in the academy also, my teacher at the time recommended, he was like, well, your music is very film score-y-ish. It's very, but it's like, it's Hollywood. This is what we do in Israel and it's a little less big, let's say, like a lot of minimal scoring. So it's, if you watch Israeli movies, a lot of them are way more silent. So yeah.
Yeah. Not a lot of scoring in the thing where they took that fortress on the hill, and I totally am blanking on the name of that movie.
Yeah.
What was it? How did you basically start getting like jobs like on English language films? I mean, what composers did you meet to take you to that next step?
well, you need to learn English first, which I was not good at the time. But how I learned English is actually funny. I watched all the Harry Potter movies, and then I read all the books like after watching the movies, and so I already knew what was supposed to be the story, and it made English way easier. And that's really how I learned. So it was, kind of thanks to John Williams, really. So yeah, so once you start out, and this is something I've already done in Israel, but also here during USC and after USC, was to kind of run after all opportunity that I could and just do it. And a lot of times this included disappointments, because you email people and you reach out and you're hoping to to form a connection with filmmakers, and sometimes you won't get a reply, and sometimes it will, be a no, thank you, we have a composer, or like, thank you, we're going in a different direction. And it's still true until today, really. Like, even with studio stuff, like oftentimes you'll get interviewed and you think you're the right person, you submit a great reel or a great pitch, and they'll still go with someone else. And that's, it's okay. I'm just saying, disappointment is part of this, becoming a composer thing. But yeah, like, so once you start doing like a short here and a couple of commercials here and a promotional video and a documentary, and then these directors and producers and editors, they all go on more projects. And if you did a good job and you're fun to be with, they'll recommend you for the next gig. And so of these shorts that came because of previous work with those filmmakers. That's also how I got to do Absentia. It was because an editor that I worked with on a short film 2 years before then remembered me when he started working on Absentia, and they needed a composer, and he was like, he reached out. It was kind of out of the blue, and he was like, well, here's we're doing this show, and I thought of your score because it reminds me of what we did on Mind Game, which was the short film. And it's a thriller, and kind of, can you send me some of your music and I'll pass it on to the producers, which he did. And then they called me the day later, and on Monday I was already in an interview with them. So it was, you never know what gig leads to the other, and so that is helpful, to do all those gigs, like to try hard.
Now, you made your entry into the Star Trek universe with actually a really, they were doing for a while these Star Trek short live action films, and I think actually really one of the best was the Q&A, which essentially was #1 in Spock Stuck in an Elevator. I mean, how did you get that? That was really, again, the beginning of it for you.
Well, I have Michael Giacchino to thanks for that, because after we started working on American Pickle, he saw what I can do with film score. And that's obviously he's the greatest advocate a composer can have, a young composer can have. So he basically recommended me for this particular short. They were doing this for those of you who don't know, it was the short film. It was trying, like, the producers were trying sort of like smaller stories, or stories that involve the big characters, but on a little adventure that we didn't get to experience on the big show. Also wanted to try out like new people, and so I was it was a good fit, and I came there, and it was Spock's first day on the Enterprise, and it was also my first day on the Enterprise, so I needed to do a good job. Like, it was a little, Star Trek. It's so iconic, and the music of Star Trek is so big and iconic, and all these incredible composers, they came before me, like Courage and Goldsmith, Horner, Giacchino, like. So it was obviously a little, I was excited and also a little nervous, because, like, I mean, I'm stepping into the footprint of like really big people, and I have to maintain, that same level of writing. So I was honored and also kind of, stressed, but I guess I think I do my best work when I'm stressed, so that's good. I guess. So yeah, it was really fun. We recorded the score at Warner Brothers. It was a smaller orchestra. I think it was like 36 or so. But yeah, it worked out really well.
Well, actually, this is going to go to our first question. You've kind of answered this a little bit, but again, when you have this legacy of incredible names like Courage and Dunning and Steiner and Goldsmith, how did you? I guess my question to is how do you overcome those fears? I mean, like when you get you're going to be the first first female doing a live action, like full on TV show, not a short. How did you beat it? How did you get into that chair?
Well, okay, that's a big question. I guess. Well, for the female thing, I mean, I think it's really great. I don't think they hired me because of the female thing, but because it was kind of surprising to think about the fact that no female composer was involved. So I'm proud of that, of course. The other thing is that like I feel some sort of responsibility on my shoulders, and I think that a lot of female composers have that now, that feeling of like, okay, we have to do this a great job because we have to prove that girls can do it too, and that we're not, we're sometimes even better than the guys. Like, so, but there's this thing where you have to prove yourself even more, to show that, like, to open the door for other female composers. So I am hoping I'm doing a good job. And then how to get over the fears is just not to think about it, I guess. Like, I mean, it's not like I have a fear. I mean, I think part of like it's more plus nervousness because again, you want to do a good job. But the way that I think about it is, okay, I look back, or I face a difficult scene and I'm like, oh God, I have to do a good theme to impress these producers, whatever. Or I have to, sometimes you have tricky scenes, even on a, let's say, even on Prodigy or Stranger Worlds, which I've already done like a bunch of episodes, but sometimes there's still something really difficult. And I tell myself, well, okay, Nami, is this the scene that's going to break your career? Is this the deal breaker for you? Like, think about what all you've done, all these short films, all these narrative pictures, all these documents, everything that you've ever composed, all the styles you've gone through. Like, is this the one that's gonna like be the one thing you can't do? And then I think, well, no, obviously not. Like, I've done so much. So once you do this process, it's like you build your confidence to a level where it's like, okay, well, sometimes at midnight, and you still have to do 3 minutes of music for tomorrow's whatever session or review or whatever it is, and you got to do it. And this is a good example. Sometimes I have to 9 minutes of action music to do for the next day, and sometimes you don't have a choice, so you do it. No, there's no one else who will do it for you, right? Like kind of like Uhura in episode 3, where she's the only person for the job, so she has to do it. So that's how I look at things.
Now, actually, I want to kind of jump back into Prodigy, which you scored, before Strange New Worlds. And what's the difference between scoring for animation, essentially, a show that was aimed at younger viewers, to, doing grown-up Star Trek, as it were?
Well, yeah, there's two fundamental things that are different. The first one is pace. So animation is way quicker. We have 22 minutes to tell the story. If you move the titles, we have 22 minutes for each story. And then, on Strange Worlds, we have about 50, which is twice as slow. So music wise, often in Prodigy, you'll have like really quick transitions, or you can't really stay long on a theme or like an motif. Like it will move very quickly, the story, the scene, whatever it is. Like so you have to be very smart about your musical choices, and let's say the dynamic range of your cues is going to be like faster or more condensed. While on Strange Worlds, there's usually more time for, like, if there's a scene and under dialogue, you really have time to spread. You have a lot of time to explore your themes and come back to them. Like you can do like larger melodical lines. Like you can there's like more opportunity for, let's say, broad epic, like a moment of drama and like this moment of a sequence of action, and then like a bit of comedy and back to action. Like it's going to be more, it's more dynamic, let's say. The other fundamental difference is the audience, as you're saying. So this is aimed for kids who don't really know Star Trek. So in the first episode is really like, oh, this is, here's a ship, like here's Captain Janeway, but we're kind of introducing them to that world. And so the music didn't have to be super Star Trek-y at first. And I think throughout the first season, the first 20 episodes, or 10 are still being worked out. But like you actually can see that in the music, that like slowly it becomes closer and closer and closer to like a more traditional Star Trek sound. And the other thing that we thought about was like, okay, well, adults that watch the show are Trekkies, and I'm a Trekkie. So I did want to do like the connections to Voyager. So in the music, you do have those connections with Captain Janeway. You still have the TOS fanfare sometimes when appropriate. So it is Star Trek in the music too. But it wasn't like, because the kids that watch it, like they don't have nostalgic emotions to Janeway. But I wanted to do that because once they do watch Voyager and they do watch the rest of the franchise, that we as the adults, the Trekkies, that's how we feel when we watch Prodigy. So yeah.
No, that pretty much answers it. Now, here's our first question from Thomas McGuire. Please send in your questions. Do you think that we are in the midst of a female composer renaissance?
Midst? Oh, midst. I hope so. I hope there would be more and more. The thing is, I think the opportunities are starting to be given more often, which is a good thing, because like, I mean, in an ideal world, it would be a 50-50 scenario. And right now, with movies, we're still around, 2 to 3% of top grossing films are scored by female composers. TV is getting way better. I think it's like 20, or maybe I'm wrong, but like the percentages are getting more even. But yeah, I think, it's also a matter of credibility, right? Like, so I'm thinking about my journey, for example. I've worked on like a gazillion shorts. I did like, I don't know, 10 or 12 indie features. Then I got my first show, and now I did another show and another show and another show. And it takes a while to have a big studio to be like, oh, okay, here's a score of like, $50 million movie or even more. They are kind of afraid to hand you this kind of project, so they need to trust you. And the fact is that right now there's obviously a lot of male composers who have done that before, so it's easy for the studio executives to be like, okay, well, I mean, I totally understand that concern. And so I feel like the more to bridge that gap, because as you go on, they give you a bigger film and a little more budget, and so I really hope that in the next like 5 to 10 years we will see that, because I am starting to see that. My friends are like, people are starting to get more opportunities from bigger studios like Steph Economou, Amy Doherty, and Catherine Dern, like a lot of like younger names that are kind of my age. And we're starting to get there. So, I'm all for that.
Now, Dale would love to know, in what ways was being skillful with such a disparate mix of instruments like the flute, the guitar, the piano, and an oboe helped shape your composing approaches and made you sympathetic to players?
Yeah. Oh, this is a great question, really. So yeah, I mean, look, often you don't have to be an expert on a certain style of music in order to do a score. You can familiarize yourself with the elements that are a part of that score. Let's say I had to do that Jewish klezmer score, right? I'm from Israel. I know the Jewish culture. I grew up on this, like, Israeli or Jewish music, but it's not like I play the clarinet like a klezmer person. So you can do that research. You can bring experts to kind of like, my cousin plays the clarinet, so I asked him to demonstrate and to see what can be done. So, you often want to explore the genre that you're working in. And yes, it is very helpful if you know the instruments that you're writing for, like orchestration stuff. So knowing how to play the flute I can, write a pretty good flute score. I would say Miss Arizona has like flutes layered, because I didn't have much budget. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to record my own flute, my own guitar, and it worked out really well. So that was helpful. The other thought about that would be like, okay, I'm limited in my ability as a flute player, as a flutist, right? Like I'm not great at playing like concertos and stuff. So it could limit your ability if you think about it that way. So, often what I write for orchestral instruments or for piano or for harp, like it's things that I don't know how to play. So it's helpful to know instruments. It's helpful to know styles, but it's not something that would be, an obstacle as, when you look at composing stuff, because even Brahms, like I'm pretty sure he didn't know like how to play all the orchestral instruments, but he still wrote gorgeous music for them. Same for John Williams and really everyone. So yeah, but yes, it's very helpful to know instruments. Yeah, and it's fun.
Yeah, big props to American Pickle. That was really the movie where it's like, who is this person? I had no idea who you were, but I just thought it was just magical. And it was like, like a long history of klezmer scores. And it to me was by far the best of them.
Yeah. And, I don't play clarinet. I tried. I actually have a clarinet here. And so I play basic things like, Peter and the Wolf theme, like those things, but I'm not a performer. Yeah.
But yeah, really just a charming Seth Rogen movie. So going back to Strange New Worlds, now, you have Jeff Russo who does the main title for it. But what was it like just basically setting the tone? Because, the whole thing is that, what you could call like the new track, there's like a homogeneity to the sound of these shows, and you kind of have to have, that for the most part. How was it kind of setting your style where you would have your own voice, but yet it would gel with the music that Jeff had done before?
Actually, that's an interesting question, because I think this was done intuitively. We didn't really talk about like aligning any of the sounds with Picard or Discovery or Lower Decks or Prodigy, to be honest. Like, so all the new track, I think it's actually something that the producers may have intended to, because they chose different composers for those different shows. And I think Lower Decks has its own sound, and Prodigy has its own sound, and Discovery definitely has, like, they all have their own sounds. Picard, that flute thing, like it's all like very different, and so Strange New Worlds also, it has like, I would say, if anything, the bigger influences are like the older Star Trek scores, and yeah, I think in the modern approach of like how you approach a scene and how you score a film or a show, then yes, it kind of goes with Discovery and Picard, because it's live action, in the broadness of it too, and the cinematic thing. But yeah, I wanted to call for back to the original series, because that's we are actually doing the very original series, the pilot, and so they did that with the designs and with the costumes and with the actors, the iconic characters, and the design of the ship, like everything. And they pay so much attention to details. So I'm kind of doing the same with music. Like that was my purpose. And I think so far it's been received very well. So yeah, that, you can do all sorts of like textures with woodwinds, for example, or with, and even the way that you structure your chords, or the ensembles that you use, like there's a way to bring those emotions that the original series brought. And obviously, I'm very influenced by Michael's stuff for track, and from Jerry Goldsmith. All the big, I'm a Trekkie, so it's really hard for me to be like not influenced by those things. I think it's just done because it's such a part of my identity that like I know the track music. It's just part of me. So yeah.
Well, I mean, talk about throwbacks. The opening of Spock Amok. I mean, I think, next to that main theme, probably for arguably the most famous piece of OG Star Trek music is Gerald Fried's Ponfar stuff.
Yeah.
What was it like getting that? I mean, did you like get a manuscript of the I'm blanking on the cue, but of the Gerald music to do your own variation of it?
Yeah, actually, yeah. So we talked about this like way back, and obviously they went for it. Like it was calling for that. And Jeff Russo had like the handwritten score, and he sent it to me. And I actually like I played on piano. I learned like because there's some really cool like with intervals like with for that melody. It was just really cool to play and to explore it and to figure out how to do that into that scene and how to so basically we're starting it starts from a hint and then we kind of like wait I'm like doing it on a piano we started from like this hint and then we go and kind of like expand it and make it more intense as the fight starts so this was really cool. I mean I'm really honored to have done that and I think it's been just really fun. Like we all really cheered at the studio when we recorded it. It was really amazing to do. I'm glad they went for it,
Yeah, I thought it was just wonderful. And one thing that's really cool about this series, which again, I for me, it's my favorite of all the new treks so far, is that it's serialized. It's not like the other shows have followed a very kind of straight storyline where something will happen, but essentially you're following that story. But in this, every episode is kind of different.
Yeah.
I imagine that's a lot maybe more fun in a way, is that you get a different tone with every episode.
Yeah, that's part of the really fun stuff about Strange New Worlds is that we obviously there's like those reoccurring themes for characters or like reoccurring general themes, but like every episode brings a new like problem or a new mystery or new characters. You have different planets like so I do get the opportunity to explore different musical scenarios. So that's like really fun, and it's part of that track going back to like the original form of it, where it was episodic, as opposed to like a general arc, like a very bingeable scenario like Picard, which I, by the way, love. I love both of them. Yeah, but I think there's something really exciting, and also maybe some of these characters that we meet will come back. So no spoilers, but it's really fun to get to explore different instruments, and like some planets they would have like this kind of a flute thing or a synth instrument that it will be just for that, just for that planet or just for that character. So it's really fun. It's like it's so colorful. Like Trek has this like universe of it's like a color palette, and it's like enormous. It's really fun.
Now you do quite a bit of other things, and that's going to bring us to a question from Louis Versalini. Now, when scoring the music for the video game Medal of Honor Above and Beyond, did you listen to the previous scores to tie into the franchise for ideas? And
oh my God, have I listened to it? Oh my God, I listened to all the Michael scores. Actually, I also listened. I think Ramin did one, and I think there was another one. Chris, I don't remember, but I listened to all of them actually. But then I focused on the ones that Michael did, because obviously this was a Giacchino NAMI collaboration, and we were calling back to the original game. So yes, I listened to it like thoroughly a lot. And yeah, he actually also sent me the scores, so I also looked at the actual scores, which was an excitement for me too. Like, wow, I get to like really dive into Michael's scores, which is like, for a young composer like me, it's incredible. And I'm a big nerd when it comes to like score reading, so I was spending a lot of times with those scores. One more thing is that I actually read some books about D-Day, and I think it was also what's that the book that was later made to a series. Forgot, sorry. It was an HBO series. I didn't watch it, but like the book was amazing. So yeah, sorry, it'll come back to me.
Now, do you think it's important for a video game composer to play video games, or in this case, I believe a VR game?
No, I mean, I think it's important to align with the story and the characters and the feel of it and the tone. And that is part of why I read those books, because it helped me understand the perspective of a soldier coming to Normandy and having to fight this crazy war. And so, coming from Israel, I know a lot about World War II. We studied it thoroughly in high school and like in other ways. Like there's a lot of movies, there's a lot, but it always focuses on the Jewish perspective, and then on the Holocaust. And then when I read all these like experiences from soldiers, because this does, there was like a lot of like testimonials, and that was really fascinating. And so that is the feeling of the game. So it was not just about like fighting the Nazis, but like it had a bigger emotional context when you play it. As there's also these documentaries from veterans, short documentaries in the game, so it was with this extra value of like really learning what has happened there. And it's not just about shooting the bad guys. But in that sense, I didn't have to play the game, because I get this animation, like an animatic. It's not final, but they gave me the sounds. Like it felt like almost the game. It was like they recorded like a playthrough of several of the stages, like the levels, but yeah, it wasn't, there's some stuff that I wrote that I haven't seen the actual picture because it wasn't there. Like there was nothing to write for. So you do have to use your imagination a lot and kind of like, do ups and downs and like, kind of create, it's a more broader form, let's say, as opposed to narrative, because you have to create like, you don't know exactly where things are hitting, or it really depends on what the player is going to do, but you still want to make it like, you want to make it exciting. So often I'll watch the same video and I'll kind of decide, okay, what's happening here? And then kind of, okay, this is, now it's like, it's building to, to nothing, or it builds to like, or there's all sorts of things that I had to imagine. And so it's really interesting, as opposed to narrative where I know what happens because Captain Pike is doing that. So the music will comment on that, or it will help that, or it will be shaped by the narrative rather than the in a video game, which it's more like I'm shaping what I think should be there. So yeah, it was really cool. I did get to play it, but at the studio, like with at East West, but sorry, East West. EA, sorry, Electronic Arts. But yeah, it's I'm not playing that video. I'm not playing video games, actually. I mean, I want to. I played Journey one time. It was amazing. The Austin Wintory.
Oh yeah.
So,
cool game.
Yeah.
So send in some questions to NAMI. We've got one from Victor Fields, and he'd love to know: are there any non-Trek series you'd like to write music for?
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed The Woman in the House across the street from the girl in the window. It's fun to say that. I love actually stuff that are non-orchestral, because it's a nice break from those big epic things. Again, I love American Pickle, Medal of Honor, like all these things are. I love the orchestra. I played the orchestra. I actually forgot, being as a flute player or an oboe player earlier, you sit in the middle of the orchestra, so you're I love that. Like I was informed by that a lot growing up, because playing in a melodic instrument, it's a lot about melody, it's a lot about like orchestral textures, and you get to sit in the middle of as a woodwind player, so you hear everything. And then doing a score that is more like, synth based or guitar based or piano, like, and these are also instruments that I play. You get to do really other things. And I think having played all these instruments is very helpful in the idea and that. And it's nice to have this big palette of things that I can do, not just the orchestral, but like, so The Woman in the House, very different, very like, thriller-y, investigational, a little bit of comedy, some romantic drama, like all the sweeping romantic scene, like, or little like, horror moments. Same for Absentia. It was very horror and investigation of police and FBI things and mystery. So it's really nice to find these tones. I like to create music that defines this kind of tone in different ways, because you can do it with synths and you can do it with orchestra. So it depends on what's the personality of the show. So it's definitely fun. And my next project is actually a romantic, like a teenage coming of age romantic comedy-ish. So it's, that's not big orchestral brass and trombones. But I'm really excited about it because it's the same job. You evoke the feelings, you help shape the story with the instrumentations that you have. So I love that stuff. That's why I did it.
I'd love to talk about what I feel are some of your highlights so far in Strange New Worlds. I mean, every episode, as it premieres, this is really a delight, for me and a lot of people. I particularly love the episode with the musical comet, and especially the whole huge long flight through that meteor.
Yeah, that was actually the first thing I did for the show, like the music for those scenes on the comet, and then the music that the comet is projecting at them, or communicating to them, because they needed all of that stuff prior to shooting. And this was the first episode that was shot and the first episode that was recorded afterwards. So it was really cool. That was my first experience with Strange New Worlds. And I got the ranges of the actors' vocals, and we talked about what it should be, because when I read the script, it was kind of hard to imagine how is that going to work? How are they envisioning this? And will there be score in the background, or how are we differentiating between the comet? It was all, but it all came out really well. And I watched it. This was I watched it and I'm like, how do we first of all, how did it do it? That's amazing. The other thing was this, I love that it shows that music is a universal language. And so really universal throughout the universe. That was really fun. And we actually had a Prodigy episode that also had that similar idea where the aliens were communicating through music, and the crew had to figure that out and find a way out. And so there was a lot of dissonant stuff. Sorry, spoiler alert. So that means the music that I had to write there was super, super dissonant and super discordant, weird alien stuff. And then by the end of it, there's this super harmonious, beautiful choir cue, and that after you heard this dissonant stuff for 7 minutes, and then you get this beautiful harmony thing. It's it feels even more glorious. So it kind of shows to the power of music, which I love. That's that's what I live for. That's what I do, and I appreciate it. So. Yeah,
I particularly love the episode where we get to meet, or don't really meet, the Gorn. And, coming from a pretty hilarious, great OG episode with the guy in a lizard mask to making them something really scary.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me about scoring that episode.
Oh, my God. First of all, when I first watched it, was in the spotting session, I was I'm still amazed by this episode, but it was so powerful. I did cry several times. I'm a crier. I cry a lot when I watch things. So this was one of those, because it has a lot of impactful moments, and the whole Memorial Day thing also speaks to me personally. And so and then the whole thing about the Gorn is where we don't really meet them, as you're saying. We meet their ships for now. It's just, I think it makes it even more scarier, even more scary when you don't face your enemy yet. You don't, it's like a ghost. And that's what Lon says. A lot of people have seen the Gorn. It's just no, they didn't survive to talk about it. So, so I wanted the music to reflect this kind of scary, super, super advanced, scary, society. I'm not even sure, the Gorn, the Gorn society. And then their ships are basically superior to the Enterprise. So we have those chase scenes, and it was really fun to get big and to really go for it. And I think that this episode allowed both for that music, and then like all this tension. There's a lot of tension in that, like, so and tension you often want to do as like more quiet actually, and like more spread out, and less, sometimes the less is more. So you kind of doing a texture, let's say when Pike is starting, planning his maneuver, there's this texture that is not very dense, and then when you hit the action, that's where things really get loud. And then on the other side, the emotional side of this episode, there's all the stuff with Lana and her brother, and the end of it, like it really allowed for a lot of emotions, and a lot of like the more melodic, the more emotional things to come out. So yeah, it was an amazing piece to write to. Like, I mean, the content is so good on these episodes. I'm like, they make my job so easy.
Now, Ivan Sorkin over at the Bond Music would love to know if you can give any advice to young people who want to become a film composer. How should they reach for success?
Okay, this is a tricky question because I feel I'm often asked that, and I feel like you kind of have to build your own strategy because everyone's circumstances are different. So what I'm going to say is something very different than what Giacchino is going to say, or Hans, or anyone, Jeff Russo. Like, everyone has their own path, and so you need to take everything with a grain of salt. That being said, my professor at USC, he said something that was super, super true, and that was work hard, be nice, and get lucky. And so the work hard part refers to what we talked about earlier, which is score those shorts. Go after students, after filmmakers, do their thesis films, do animations, do anything you could put your hands on. And a lot of times that means you have to be very active in finding those gigs. If you're really starting out, then reach out to crowdfunding campaigns. They're looking for, they're forming their teams, they're forming their budgets. Maybe they don't have a composer on board yet. So going after those, going to attending filmmaker festivals, or if your short is screening somewhere, go and hang out with the filmmakers and get to know them, and go to the parties, be their friend. They'll recommend you, and they'll want to work with you because you'll become friends. Like my best friends are filmmakers I worked with 7 years ago on a web series I started after USC. And we're still best friends. So, and that's on the work side. The be nice thing is, be nice, be fun to hang with, be a person that people, just, be yourself, but, don't make it difficult for people to work with you. Like, if you're getting criticism, just do it, or have a discussion, but like, don't be difficult. So that's the be nice. And then the get lucky is something that, you gotta get lucky. And you can make your own luck, kind of like what I did, which was like, okay, I'm gonna, shoot in all directions. One of them is gonna hit, that's what I did. And I feel, if you create your own opportunity, eventually that luck is going to come. But yeah, so these are the things I would focus on. That makes any sense.
Now, warping back to Strange New Worlds. I mean, now who doesn't love Anson Mount in this?
Oh my god! In the green tonic.
And what's interesting, he's, I think, maybe the most confident captain I've seen yet on any of the shows. How does that translate to the music? Even in the worst of it, he's always pretty cool.
Yeah,
very sure of himself.
I'll say that all the crew in this, except for Uhura, are very confident in their abilities. I mean, you see Hammer is like blind, but he's like still, considering him, he is a great engineer, but like, and everybody views him as a genius, and he views himself too. Same for Ortegas, like the best pilot. Like, they say you're the best, you're the best pilot to finish the academy. Like, so, and Unana, like, all of them are very capable and very confident. I think, if anything, Pike is actually showing this confidence because he has to show it to the crew. Like, he's a very crew angled captain. Like, he considers their thoughts very like he takes advice from them often, like from Lon, from Spock, and he cares about them, and you can really see that with the dinners, with he's very social, and I think he really cares about like inspiring them and bringing hope and all of that. Like, so he's very that's on the outside. Like he's emotional, like he's got this emotional intelligence, but at the same time he's dealing with his own, like, his fate. He knows his fate, so he's confident about that, but he's not, he's very unconfident about what's going to happen to him. Like, it's a fate that's very hard to kind of digest. So I think his music kind of reflects that, because you have this epicness in his theme and his style, but like you do have these like darker underlying things, textures and like oftentimes it'll be played in a very low range, so it will be like this conflict of like he's got hope, he's projecting hope to others, but he has his own big issues that he's dealing with, and that conflict actually creates a really great, strong character, and provides very nice musical opportunity.
Wow. What has the scoring process been like? I mean, I guess you're doing these in London. I mean, do you do like several episodes at once, or one episode at a time, or?
Yeah, I'm not doing this in London. I think what you saw was a different project. This is actually here in Burbank, in Warner Brothers. We score each episode separately. And this was a schedule thing. I'm hoping that season 2 will allow us to score 2 at a time, but I'm not sure. It's just more cost effective. So yeah, the scoring process is you go through, you have a spotting session with the filmmakers. Often it's Henry. Henry's our showrunner. And then you go through the episode and you talk about like where would be music, what would it would achieve, maybe hit points, maybe some ideas, maybe references of like, hey, let's bring this theme here or this theme back, or like let's say quotes from the original series, like a lot, we talked about the Gerald Fried music, so these kind of things. And then general approach. We do that with the sound department. So everyone's kind of aligned up, and I get to learn so much about sound in those sessions. And then we scored it. We were working the episode, and when we scored it, it's Warner Brothers, as I mentioned. For season 1, there were 37 musicians in the orchestra, so it's a smaller orchestra than Picard or Discovery. But this season we're gonna get the same amount of musicians, so I'm really, really happy about that. Yeah.
So, I mean, do you have a book of like the theme? Because obviously, I think the show is going to be going on for quite a while. Do you keep a book of themes? Okay, well, here's the Hammer theme. I'm going to put this over here, and you basically start collecting themes for characters that you'll suddenly pull out or just remember, or just kind of a library, if you will.
This is a great idea. I sadly did not write anything on like, a lot of times I've done it on under projects, actually. On Prodigy, for example, I have a notebook with, okay, this is Queen's motif, this is Dow's motif, this is Zero's theme. Like, so I would have those line up. A lot of times it would be like either the chords just or with the actual melodic stuff. I have not done that on Stranger Worlds. I really didn't have time. It was very, very quick. But I'm gonna do that because that's very smart. And yes, often I'm like, if I have to call back and I don't remember something, I'll just go back to that episode and listen back to the music and go from there. Like a lot of times I actually do that. But yeah, it's very smart to do like a notebook. Yeah, I recommend it. I'm gonna do it.
Are you waiting for the chance to bring in any of the movie themes into the show?
Yes and no. I'm not sure we're allowed to do that.
No spoilers, but
but that we're technically allowed to do that, like rights wise, because I think at least with Prodigy, we're not allowed to do that. So I have to check. I know that things that are owned by CBS that we could quote. And without getting an additional license and stuff, but this is more of a legal question. But yeah, there is something that may justify that in the future, but I can't really talk about.
Okay, no spoilers, no spoilers. We'll pretend you're on a Romulan ship.
There is something, because I did, I started season 2, so I am seeing stuff.
Oh.
and it's very good. It's so good. It's amazing how this show is just getting better with time. Like, and it's such a strong start to begin with. So like, where are they going to take me next? Like, it's so good. It's so good.
I mean, because this deals, with the classic Trek, which is my favorite, because that's what I grew up with. Did you like rewatch the entire original season, or just kind of like file away in your head, maybe particular cues that you liked from the original run that you wanted to go for here?
Yeah, this is funny. This is a good question. Because yes, I did. I do know this music really well, and I have watched the original series. Like, I think it was 2020. I think it was 2020 actually. Like, there was a lot of time in 2020, or maybe it was 29. No, it was 2020. And I do have a list. This is actually more. I think I started it a little later though. No, wait, I'm confused with the times. But like, I have a list of like a document with whenever I watch something that I love and I love the score, I'll show, go back to that scene, put the time, the time of it, and like write something about it in this document. I have a lot of it actually with the Voyager score and with DS9. I think there's a few mentions of the original series. I have to check. But yeah, sometimes there's music that really impresses me, and then I'll go back to that and kind of see. But yeah, it's very helpful. Like, if you're a composer and you're working on this kind of franchise, and then for these callbacks or things that you really loved, or style that you really loved, or a certain idea that just works really well with picture, like whatever. Like, there's so many things that impress me with music. So I do it, and not just for track actually. Like, that list has other things too. It's part of, when you're learning, you're still learning. Like, there's, I'm sure that John Williams is still learning, when he watches stuff, like, and not just from his own work, but like from others. And I think it's important as you're developing as a composer, then you kind of, you learn. So you learn from other people's stuff too.
So I guess my last question before I wrap up is that, you've joined a very illustrious federation of composers who have been able to score Star Trek. What do you hope that your legacy is going to be in terms of what you contribute to this franchise?
Oh man, this is a tough question. I don't know. I hope to do good by the people who watch. I want. I think I guess more than being writing those big themes, or I think I just want to tell the story in a way that will be engaging and fun and exciting and emotional for the viewers, because that's the real reward, is like when people love the show. And yes, if they love the music, that's also great. I'm proud of it, and I'm proud of it as a standalone. But my main purpose is that the show will be as great as possible. And I feel like if my score contributes to that and contributes to the continuation of Trek, and that we keep telling stories of Star Trek, in the next 60 years or even more, that is great. That is enough for me. And then I know a show like that inspires other people to, the people who watch it and they're like 15 now, maybe it will inspire them to go to, to learn physics and go to NASA and do like big things. Maybe they'll work on a warp engine. Like, I really want to see that, hopefully in my timeline. I don't know. But it would be really cool if people who are now watching the show will continue to, to those time fields and kind of, or they'll tell stories, like, I'm happy to be part of like something that inspired me so much. So, that's like, yeah, I'm fortunate. Yeah. Very grateful.
Well, I mean, you're definitely inspiring, and again, you're doing a terrific job, and every episode of the show is a real treat for me and a lot of people. I want to say thank you so much for joining us at Film Music Live, Nami. Watch Star Trek: Strange New Worlds on Paramount Plus, and stay tuned for its soundtrack album. Thanks to Mark Northam, our producer Dale Turner, everyone at Costa Communications, and I will be seeing you on the next Film Music Live.
Thank you.
Thanks.